we have a graphic for?
We can do a little gift for this.
Opening this
It's
one.
a certain time, as a certain Cabela would say.
Yeah, I'm on the wrong thing. Hold on. I'll get there. Where we go? Hey.
There we go. Okay.
It's Tulsi time.
I feel like it's been a while since we've done a story on Tulsi.
It has been a minute.
There just isn't as much news on her since like a couple weeks ago.
Well,
Shocker.
since it's been sort of solidified in most people's minds who the top 4 are, and she is not one of the top 4.
I miss our all the gifts we had for Tulsi time. Like, could we just throw like another one?
We got another
one.
Tulsi
Yeah,
gift
let's
in
give her a
there.
little more love.
A little ukulele love.
I swear we're gonna get Tulsi on this show before the end of the presidential race, whether she wants to or not. Though probably she'll have to want to, but you know how it is.
Yeah. Consent.
Get on this show.
Consent.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this. This is actually a really good story. So Tulsi Gabbard recently had, or even further back than recently, a while back, talked about the need to decriminalize drugs because of the war on drugs. So she has come out and now has the most progressive drug policy of any of the candidates out there. Either heard out other people like Pete Buttigieg who thought that they were number one in this. Anyway, let's talk about it. So Tulsi Gabbard is calling for the U.S. to legalize currently illicit drugs, saying if we take the step to legalize and regulate, then we're no longer treating people who are struggling with substance addiction and abuse such as criminals and instead getting them the help that they need. Now, this is very important because right now, if you're addicted to heroin and you go in and tell people I need help, they're going to go, oh, that's great. I got these wonderful bracelets for you in a concrete cell that's going to be your new home. However, in places like Portugal, they go, okay, we're going to help treat you. We're going to help get you off this. We're going to help deal with certain aspects of your life that have put you in this place. So that's the path that she's looking to talk about. She continues, the costs and consequences to this failed war on drugs is so vast. And by the way, $1 trillion. We could have done the war on drugs, or we could have universal health care, not universal health care, universal college for 2 generations. Either one. Of course, and also the costs that you brought up before of sending all these people to jail. Thank you, Bill. When I say Bill Clinton, also Joe Biden. Anyway, is so vast and reaching so societally and fiscally that if we take these necessary steps, we'll be able to solve a lot of other problems that we're dealing with in this country. She said, and she's also sponsored a number of cannabis legalization bills during her time in Congress. And then this stance changed from going to decriminalization to legalization. Now puts her in front of people like Pete Buttigieg, who I'm actually very annoyed, seems to be further left of Sanders on this topic.
Is he really?
Because as far as I'm aware, Sanders is legalization of cannabis, and I heard him talk about this when he was on the Joe Rogan Experience. He seems to indicate that he's for decriminalization, but it's not that clear of other drugs, because he's like, I don't want decriminalization, but he also said I don't want to have people who are suffering to go to jail. He just needs to speak on it more. I feel like he would be more left, but I need to hear it from him before I say that. I can't just assume what he's going to say. Also, Andrew Yang was talking about decriminalizing opioids. This puts Tulsi Gabbard in front of everybody, which is another reason we would want her to be around Sanders. These candidates and most other Democrats running it for president in 2020 also support legalization, with the exception of Joe Biden, who put us in the mess that we're in right now.
Shocker.
Doesn't want to have us leave. Also huge shock, Mike Bloomberg, who, well, if you're in New York, I don't have to say anything. If you're not in New York, ask your New York friends to ask about it. It's just such a sad time. Who back more modest steps, such as removing criminal penalties for possession and expunging past records. During the New Hampshire campaign stop she was recently at, Gabbard also spoke out about her support for ending cannabis prohibition, calling it, quote, easiest and most critical first step towards ending the war on drugs. So there you guys have it. Tulsi Gabbard, someone had to do it first. She's the first to say, legalize everything. And I completely agree. Even if we're talking about really bad drugs like heroin or fentanyl, it's like, well, we already have been.
You mean the really good ones? Just kidding.
Yeah. Hey, what's the difference between a drug and a drug? There isn't. I mean, the people are like, oh, drugs are bad, but medicine's good. What's the difference if a doctor prescribes it? OxyContin was prescribed by doctors. So my point is this. You have basically 2 angles you can go with. One, You can give money to black markets, which then increase cartels and drug syndicates. You increase corruption. You increase organized crime. You increase price. You take away all ability for safety testing, or like there's a huge amount of illicit cannabis that just is filled with really terrible insecticides, things of that nature. Or angle two, you regulate it, you make it clean. And so here's an example. If people are like, okay, let me see an extreme example of this. Let's go to Portugal. So in Portugal, by the way, they don't have new heroin users. So if you're an existing heroin user and you want to get high, you go to a safe injection site that's run by the government. It is a staffed place that has obviously brochures. It's like, hey, are you sure you don't want to get off this stuff now? If you do, okay, we're going to help you go on that path. And it's not going to cost you anything. And of course, for the country, it costs them way less over time to get someone off heroin. But if you're in that state, they will give you as much heroin as you want, but they will make sure it is not enough to overdose on. It's pure, so they know they're not going to kill you with like fentanyl or something. And when you inject, you have to inject on site, and they're going to have medical professionals watching over you with if there is the reversal drugs, making sure that you're safe. And so what happens? The black market doesn't exist for it because there's no demand, because people can get it for free. The number of people that are able to get off is slowly happening. I think that they've, in the last decade, I could be materializing these facts. Someone can check me on this if I'm wrong, but I think that they've like dropped like 50 or 70% of heroin users in like a decade using this plan, because it's mainly people entering in, getting hooked until they die. So if you deal with all those things, and that's just in a decriminalized sense, if you do the same kind of thing in a legal sense, that carries over in the same way. You make the super harmful stuff controlled in that kind of way. If you have cocaine that's pure, if you have cannabis that's pure, less people use it. And again, it's generally speaking, for a lot of, not like the heroin level, but like cocaine and stuff, it's like 5 or 10% of people that truly get addicted. So and then it's taxed. So everyone wins except Puritans.
But Daniel, the private prison companies have told us what percentage of our population are criminals. In fact, we've signed legislation, we've signed contracts with these companies to promise to keep their prisons at or near full occupancy. How are we going to find the criminals if we can't just take drug users and put them in jail? How are we going to do it?
And how are
maybe
private prisons going to make all that money?
Yeah.
And but Daniel, won't legalizing all these drugs make it easier for those drugs to get, and also incentivize people to do them more?
Well, let's think. Okay, let me talk to 4-year-old Jimmy, who goes to his neighborhood drug dealer, who doesn't ask for verification, ID, anything of that nature.
Jimmy's going to drug dealers at 4 years old?
Why not? I mean, they're going to sell it. They're going to sell it. You know who won't sell it? The alcohol store. Who is going to ask for ID. It's going to behind a case if you want the good stuff. The door is going to have a lock. They're going to have an incentive to not sell it to you. You're never going to get away from vice. You're never going to do it. It's prohibition never works. You're really only picking those two choices. Do you want to like say, I'm not a part of it, la, 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 and let people build up criminal networks and run it? Or do you want to say, look, I may have a moral objection to this. I might not have a moral objection to this, but this is safer, easier, doesn't cost as much, more people can get treatment, and we can get tax money out of this. It's your choice. I will say this. Every time that there has been a prohibition on something that's widely available, it has increased corruption, and it has increased crime, it has decreased quality, and increased price. So
Al Capone.
Yeah, so I would say that any general thing that's currently a vice that's considered prohibition, making it illegal doesn't do anything except make it more dangerous. But everyone can get to it, anyone can get to it, and there's way less procedures to deal with it.
Absolutely. And I think it's great that Tulsi has spoken up about this. This is something that I've been saying for many, many years, and I didn't expect to soon see any actual politician, especially on such a federal level, saying something so bold. And so I'm glad that she's saying it. I'll one-up her and say prostitution too.
It's
would
nice
agree,
to see
yeah.
a pretty quick swing in how national politics has handled this. 10 years ago, we weren't seeing anything like this. I think in the wake of multiple states legalizing medical, recreational, CBD is basically legal everywhere in the country. I think there are 4 states where CBD oil is not legal. I think it's a pretty quick, like, hey, we've been saying this for decades.
Yeah, well, again, if we just talk about cannabis has been legal for
Just cannabis.
thousands of years and has only had this very small window of being illegal for 70 years, and it's returning back. That's all that's happened.